Hey, so we're talking to our moms in this episode today.
We are. This was a good one. One I was a little nervous about, but
I know,
we went
same,
deep.
which is weird that we were nervous about it, but you just don't know what your mom is going to say.
You never do. And what I can say is that I can speak for both of us, but our relationships with our moms are like so important to us, and they're like role models to us, and we look up to them, and as moms and as just like women. And so we knew we wanted to have them on, and I think
they're both like mom and second mom. Like when Jordy and I were 14 years old, we threw a party at the rabbi's house. We think you're so innocent, but we're not. And then we got grounded together.
Right, like we didn't just get grounded, we got grounded together, which meant that we were still allowed to hang out, even though we were grounded for like a few days.
Right. I think it was a month.
No.
Okay, maybe that was when I was grounded with Alex. It was a month.
Yeah, I think so.
So this time around when we got grounded, because I always get grounded with a friend.
Yeah.
That we were allowed to go to each other's houses and to temple.
Yeah, those were the two places we could go.
So anyway, we're very close with each other, with our moms, and even our own moms.
I mean, like I mentioned in the episode, and if you've watched any of like the videos that I've posted on Instagram or TikTok, Rosalind actually drove me to like all of my radiation appointments and like made it a super fun and positive experience. And my mom married Erica.
Yes.
So like
she was our officiant.
Yeah, she was the officiant for your wedding, sang a song and
made me cry.
Yeah, made me cry. So yeah, just a beautiful relationship all the way around. And so we felt like they needed to sort of share their history with their moms for you to really understand how we feel about our moms too.
Yeah, and there's even some things that I learned. Like my middle name is Victoria, and you'll hear in the episode how I got my middle name, and I actually found out new things that I didn't know before. So that was just very like an interesting experience. And even for your mom, Jordy, like hearing your mom with her mom's relationship has really influenced your mom's parenting with you.
And her grandparenting, because like her mom wasn't around to be able to do that. So she like wants to do all the things and like be as involved as possible. And I think similar to you, I didn't learn something new, but I was a little nervous for this episode because one of the harder parts, I think, of my whole diagnosis experience has been figuring out how to like be in relationship with people still.
Yeah.
And it sounds strange that like my mom would be one of those people, but it's like so devastating to her, and I love her and want to protect her, and like you'll hear in the episode just so badly don't want her to have to worry about me that I think we sort of for the first 6 months just kind of like didn't really share, weren't super vulnerable with each other. And it really wasn't until a week before we filmed this podcast that we had a real sit down, and I said to her, like, I want you to be honest with me. I want you to share with me how you're feeling. I don't want to pretend like everything's the same, because it's not.
It's not.
But I don't want you to like worry about like burdening me. That's what she was worried about. And so I think this just gave us more opportunity to like really dive deep into what's been challenging about being in relationship with your parents when bad things happen. And bad things happen. You'll hear in this episode, bad things have happened to them and to us, and
that's just part of life.
It's part of life. But yeah, it was really fun to sit down with them. And
yeah, so you'll get more insight. You will also hear for a few moments some gardeners entering the episode. They come on our recording day, so we got to ask the gardeners to change their gardening day. So you may hear them very faintly,
leaf blowers and
in the background,
things like that.
Just adds to the chaos of life.
Yes, exactly. We also meant to record the first 12 minutes of the episode, and then I realized I hadn't pressed record. So
are we recording now?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a learning curve for sure.
The episode with her mom's really great. We look forward to hearing your thoughts, and we'll let you listen from here.
Yeah, please enjoy Erica and Jordy's moms. Funny story. We didn't press record the first time.
12 minutes
12
later.
minutes in, and we did not press record. I'm very glad I realized that now. We are recording. Thank goodness.
Welcome to Grief Street.
Yes, thank you. This is our Mother's Day episode, and we felt like who better to bring on than our own moms. So if you moms don't mind introducing yourself and saying whose mom you are.
My name is Sue, and I am Jordy's mom.
And I'm Roslyn. I'm Erica's mom. And I'm also Mimi, Emma, and
Ryan.
Not Brody's mom.
Not mom.
Grandma.
Right, not Brody's
Oh, yeah. The other day we were leaving, she goes, you said, I'm taking Emma and Brody. I'm like, Ryan. Ryan is my mom.
Well, Ramsey called Ryan Brody last night, too.
And I also
I know,
called
you do too.
my child Brody. It's
know,
very
just
hard.
kinda goes well together.
It happens.
It happens. It happens.
And I'm Grammy.
And you're Grammy. So I wanted to sort of just learn a little bit more about your guys' stories, having both lost your moms and then becoming moms and then watching your own daughters become moms, what that's been like for you. And let's start there.
That was a lot of questions, but you can start wherever you'd like around losing your mom, and then we'll walk you through.
Tell us about your relationship with your mom, Roz.
Well, I was very close with my mom. She was a friend and a mentor, and she was ahead of her time in how her philosophies in life and how she did things, and it really influenced me. But when she died at 75, which is still pretty young to pass away, I was okay. I wasn't as sad because I had lost my father in a car accident 16 years before. My father died at the age of 59 in a car accident, and that was just very shocking. And because there was a malfunction in the car. And during that time with my mom, we talked a lot about life and death. And so I knew that when the time came that she would be okay, that she wanted to know her, obviously live life, but just that we talked a lot about it. So, I miss her, but I know that she went on her own terms.
So I was also very close with my mom. They sound very similar because my mom was a modern thinker, was ahead of her time, and everybody in the family, including all the kids, the cousins, everybody would go to my mother for advice. If they had a fight with their parents, they'd call my mother and ask her advice. And so we were very close, and I was very dependent on my mother. And she died in 1977. In August of that year, she was involved in a car accident. She was rear-ended by a truck and ended up in the hospital. And CAT scan was a new technology at the time, and they only had a few machines in the hospital she was in, and it was broken. So they released her without doing it. Maybe if they had, she'd be here, but who knows? Yeah. And so she died 4 months later, which was also 2 weeks after I got married. And my sister at the time was 9. So I was 20, she was 9. So that threw me into the position of mother, sister.
Yeah.
And so she was 45 years old, way too young. And there was no autopsy for religious reasons, which I understand, but it also left me with a lot of questions.
Yeah. What
really happened? And so I didn't have any closure, and I never got to say goodbye. And that has haunted me my entire life. Mm-hmm. That's a hard thing to live with.
It's a sad story.
Yeah.
Well, so it's like you're talking about mothers, but this is the similarity is with my father, who, died in a car accident because a car malfunction, like a block from the house. And so that was very traumatic.
Yeah.
It's like so sudden and unexpected.
Yeah. But at the same time, at the last minute, because my parents did everything together,
Yeah.
at the last minute, my mom said, I am so tired. I'm going to lay down.
Wow.
And when your dad, Michael, my husband, got the call, because he got the call about my dad, and he had to tell me, I've said, what about my mom? Because they did everything together. Now, I did see my father the night before, and we had dinner. It was like a last minute thing where I said, I really miss you, Mom and Dad, and let's go to dinner. We went to Solly's when it was there.
Yeah.
And then we rented a movie at Blockbuster and got ice cream. And
What a night.
And my father's last words to me were, I love you.
Aww.
So even though, I always remember that. And I just said, I love you too. So,
Well, my mother knew she was dying. And I remember we had just come back from our honeymoon, and she kept calling us on the honeymoon. When are you coming home? When are you coming home? And I thought,
Oh, wow.
gee whiz. And we got back, and I remember her coming over to our apartment a few nights before she died. And there was a litigation going on because of her car accident. And she said, when this gets settled, I want to give you the money so you can go buy a house. I said, absolutely not. You and Dad work so hard. You take the money. And she said, no, I don't need it. I don't need anything. I'm dying.
Oh,
And
wow.
I thought, wow, she's just being so dramatic. My goodness. And then I heard after the fact that Saturday night, she died on a Sunday morning. That Saturday night, she had called a lot of her family and friends in Chicago just as a last conversation.
Wow.
She didn't say goodbye to them, but I don't
had
think
this
she
feeling
shared.
that she knew.
And she was a nurse.
She was a nurse.
So she understood
Yeah.
the body and that something felt off.
My mom kept calling me, and she would say, I'm not always going to be around, so you have to always remember to be on time, and don't forget to practice your guitar. It is
she's
that
like,
one talent which is
wow.
deaf to hide. and then she would hang up, and I thought, what's going on here? I'm
She's
a married
trying
woman
to impart
now.
all of these.
Right. And you're
last
young.
things.
You're 20
I was
years
20.
old.
Right. So
I was
of
20.
course you wouldn't ever think that
She's
at the-
dying.
right, ever.
No.
Because it would be beyond your comprehension at the age of 20.
Yeah. And then she'd call me back, and she would say, other things, other little bits of advice. And then I just thought, wow, she's annoying. and I always got along with my mother. But I thought, is this what it's going to be like now that I'm married? That was the most life-changing, traumatic, devastating event I had ever been through. And it changed the trajectory of my entire life, who I am, and my path, I'm sure. And it was very hard not having my mom around to share anything.
Yeah.
Right. Well, at age 20, that's
It's like the beginning of your life.
Right. And I know that if she had been here, she would have been over all the time. As a matter of fact, I'm sure she would have bought the house next door to us. And I remember her saying to me about Dad's sister, she can try all she wants, but I'm going to see those grandchildren, and I'm going to be all over those grandchildren. And unfortunately, she never got to meet her grandchildren.
Yeah.
But I remember, Mother's Day, her birthday. And for me, for the first 18 years after she died, every year around the anniversary of her death, and I don't remember if it was either Mother's Day or her birthday, I would get really sick and I would lose my voice. And being that that's how I earned a living, that was hard. And I remember it was Ari, your oldest brother's bar mitzvah. And I wanted to sing a song at the bar mitzvah for him. And all of a sudden I made that connection that I'm losing my voice because of the memories and the feelings of my mother. And once I made the connection, it never happened again.
Wow.
And I was able to sing a song to him.
That's really sweet.
But it was very hard raising children and not having a mom when I was pregnant and going shopping and somebody to buy, outfits and little tchotchkes and to come over and visit or babysit. I mean, Grandpa was great about babysitting, but it's a different relationship with a mother.
Yeah, I mean,
is.
I think Jordy and I can know, like, having both of you come and watch our children and do the shopping, and it's like something so special.
I can't imagine doing it without that.
Yeah.
Like, that would just feel so hard and lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very hard. And for me, I remember when I had Ari, my oldest, I was 25, and my overwhelming feeling was sadness. I should have been so happy, but the sadness that she couldn't be there was, it just overtook everything. And because we were in the middle of a court case, which was horrible to go through. So,
well, thanks for sharing,
You're
both
welcome.
of you,
Thank you.
a little bit more. And I guess we want to know, like, I know for my mom, like, you had your mom around for some time, but what was it like for both of you to be a mom when you didn't have one?
Well, my mom was around for a while. Like, I think you were
I was 10.
You were 10, and right. So I got to experience a lot of things, and she was especially close with your older sister, Danielle. And the one thing that I did with my mom, and you might remember, is that every summer I would go with my mom, you, Danielle, and Sarah, and we'd go for a little getaway.
Fun.
And the thing of it is that with the weekend that she had a heart attack, is Erica went to camp.
SeaWorld's camp.
SeaWorld camp.
Where I would sleep
SeaWorld
at
camp.
SeaWorld.
And we were supposed to go down there at the end of the week.
Yeah, this was
and
sad.
then go on a vacation. And, even though my mom had a heart attack and then she went in the hospital, she had a triple bypass, but then there was, there was like bleeding and they couldn't, or she had a blood clot. That's what it was. And they couldn't give her something for the blood clot because she just had a bypass. It was like kind of, and then it led to a stroke and then another. And then within a week, we took her off life support. And it was really hard because, I had to tell Erica, like her dad had to pick her up at camp because I was with my mom. And there'd be like, why are you picking me up? And where is everybody? And that was a hard thing.
Yeah.
My mom called me when she went to the hospital. I got the call I guess it was a Sunday morning, and I went down there, and my sister and I, we were at the hospital every day kind of thing. And so even though she didn't really regain consciousness, I've got to be there and talk to her and play her music and whatever. But it was interesting because after she passed away, I'm the one that cleaned her house. And, it's things like receipt or phone bills are almost like a journal in itself. So you could see how much you talked to that person, remember memories of just looking at a certain receipt when she bought something or you went somewhere. And so I just had, I'm just grateful for the time that I did have because, as I mentioned before, we talked a lot about it. And my mother just had a very strong belief in that it's already, kind of like that Jewish prayer. It's been written and decided who shall live and who shall die. And when your time, that it's already kind of
predetermined, kind of.
Right. And, and the interesting thing is with my father is there were 3 times in his life where he could have died and something came in like a divine intervention kind of thing. And he didn't because it wasn't his time. So, she just had a different philosophy, a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And yes, it would be great for her to be around longer, but I feel that I was so grateful for the time I had with her.
Yeah.
I remember feeling really sad when I was very confused. I didn't even know that Dad picked me up. I have a completely different memory.
What is your memory?
My memory is that you and Danielle picked me up and we were at the gas station.
No, that would be your dad.
And you told me
At the gas station?
at the gas station that we had to go visit.
Yeah.
We had to go visit her in the hospital.
Yeah.
So I have a completely different memory. And then when you said Dad, I started thinking and trying to remember. Nope, don't remember that. It's just so wild.
So interesting because I think that memory is probably correct, but it was your dad, not me, because I was by her side. And she was probably, on life support when you came to see her. I think
I don't even remember visiting her.
Yeah, I think that you did get to visit her.
I mean, I remember you getting the call that she died and you telling us that. But it seems like because of all that you had learned about death when the time came that you were still able to then like parent. And you were in the sandwich generation. You were taking care of your children and your mom at the same time.
Well, the interesting thing was I was working. I had like a dream job. And then when Danielle went to middle school, she didn't want anybody to pick her up from school anymore. She wanted me to pick her up and spend more time. And I just thought, and Michael, his business was taking off and he was working a lot of hours. So even though I had a dream job, in my mind, I thought, speaking as being a mom, I thought my children will never be this age again. I have an opportunity to have a dream job again, possibly, but I will never have this opportunity to spend this time. And so I made the decision to, leave my job, but it was like, fine. It was like time to move on for various reasons. And in that time, I spent a year with my mom. My mother wasn't a kind of person, like if she asked a favor, she didn't ask favors often, first of all. And if she asked once because she never wanted to be a burden. So if she asked for a favor,
you're going to do it.
You're
going to
say yes. Yeah. And I had that time to be with her. So again, I went kind of like, I'm so grateful I got to spend extra time with her in that year.
Right.
Oh, that's how I feel about you.
Oh, well, I love being with you too.
Even just a car ride.
Even just a car ride.
Yeah.
What about you, Sue? What is it? I know you kind of alluded to like the trauma of it. And I have memories, which we can get to, of when you were coming up around the age that your mom died. But I feel like it's a loaded question, but like, what was it like becoming a mom without your mom?
It was really hard.
Yeah.
It was, and sad, because that's a time when you really want to share with your mom.
Yeah.
And so that was really sad to me. And I had one other friend whose mom had died at a young age. So it's kind of like I was thrown into this club that I really didn't want to be a member of.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's when my father died. That's what I thought. I'm in a club I don't want to be. Now I understand. There's something that happens when somebody dies suddenly like that. Something changes in how you see things or understand things.
I will say too, when Shayla died, I also felt like this is a club I don't want to belong to.
Yeah.
I'm sure
I also feel that way
about your own self.
So we can all relate, even though our experiences are all very different, that we're all in a club that we never thought we'd be a part of or want to be a part of. Right. And yet here we are, and we have to find a way to live life just with
so
this.
When people say, oh, you have to like appreciate life now, it's like, I already learned that lesson. That's always on my mind. When you lose somebody you love suddenly, you never lose that lesson of this could happen and to appreciate it. I don't need something terrible in the world to happen to be reminded.
Right.
You just know it already.
Yeah. So,
and I didn't have anger. I know some people do. I didn't have anger. I felt very grateful that I had the best mother in the world for 20 years.
Like, it wasn't complicated.
No, but
relationship.
But I also had tremendous guilt that I had my mother for 11 years longer than my sister
Oh.
Yeah.
because there's 11 years between us.
Yeah.
There's like survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
And I felt so horrible that I didn't have anything to give her
Oh.
from our mom on her future birthdays. So
I'm curious, like, why you felt like you needed to
Yeah.
take that on.
because I was just very, very protective of Julie, even before
Or you
my
were
mom
already
died.
babysitting her
Oh.
and taking care of her bath time, all the things.
At night. I mean, my both parents worked, so I was the one that bathed her, fed her, put her to bed. And like my son Jonathan, she'd jump up and down screaming until she'd vomited.
Oh my gosh. That's
So I
terrible.
already had a taste of that, and I
Right.
was shocked when I ended up having a child that did the same thing. I
Lucky
went,
you.
Here we go again. But I will say, for me, and I didn't know any of this existed. I was 20, and it wasn't until I was 37 that I got the book Motherless Daughters, and everything that I had been feeling all those years was in that book. And I felt like it was my tribe, that these people, they understand. So my feeling, which is very, very common phenomenon, that you will die at the same age as your parent, same sex parent usually. And so I was kind of waiting for 25 years to die. And I remember waking up on my 45th birthday. And I even had a bat mitzvah when I turned
remember this.
44
Yes.
because I didn't want to die without having my
Wow.
bat mitzvah.
Yeah.
And because my dad at the time didn't believe in girls having a bat mitzvah. And I remember waking up on my 45th birthday, and I woke up with one eye, and then, wow, I'm still here. And I was angry because it's not even that you expect to die. It's like,
You know it.
you know that this is your destiny. And I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid. I was expecting it, kind of almost welcoming it, which sounds crazy, but that's a very common emotion.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I can't imagine that feeling. Like, it's so hard for me to imagine. But when you're in that position of losing your mom at a young age, I can understand it from that perspective. And I think, like, all you knew about Mom Sue's fear also during that time,
Yes,
right?
I did know that.
I didn't talk about it for a long time because I thought everybody would think I was crazy. So I didn't even talk about it with Dad.
Right.
I did not mention it to anybody.
So how did that influence how you chose to live your life?
Well, one way it did. So when you were born, I went out and I bought jewelry so that Dad would have something to give you every year on your birthday after I died.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
Right. And now I have a lot of jewelry.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
And it was really important to me because I couldn't do that for Aunt Julie.
Right.
And I didn't want that to happen to you. The boys, they didn't care about jewelry. So I don't know. I feel like maybe I put up with things more than I would have because I just thought, I'm just going to be here a few more years. It's okay. So I'm sure I would have made other decisions or not. Who knows? But I lived my life as if I was dying, and not in the sense that, oh, I have to live every day.
Right. It wasn't like a carpe diem thing.
No.
It was just like an acceptance that this is what's
It
going
was
to happen.
definitely acceptance.
Yeah.
And Jordy, did you know that your mom had this fear while it was happening?
I think so.
Not till you were
Not
older.
until I was older, but like before your bat mitzvah,
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah.
You had that fear because I was confused why you wanted to have a bat mitzvah
Yeah.
at 44.
Yeah.
And I remember asking you and you're like, well,
It's a funny
have
thing
this-
to talk about.
Yeah,
with
it's a
people
strange thing to talk about.
because people don't, unless you've been there and experienced this, it's very hard to understand.
But I do remember having like a very internalized fear of something bad happening to you or Dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's because I knew that bad things could happen.
Yeah.
And they could happen to you at any age.
Right.
And so like I had a big fear of sleeping over at other people's houses because I'm like, well, what if someone breaks into the house? I don't know how strong I thought I was, but at 7 years old, what if someone breaks into the house and I'm not there to like protect my mom and dad and then they get murdered, which is really dark, but it was the truth. I I could feel the desperation of like what it felt like to not have a parent and to want to protect that at all costs.
And I also, when Jordy, first when she turned 9, because that's how old my sister was when our mom died. So you get these very weird feelings and nerve, you're anxious. And then again, when she turned 20, and all of a sudden I became totally panicked. And I made this scrapbook and I saved every single
email.
Yeah, I saved every single email and instant message and tooth fairy notes to her and from her. And, but it was this huge scrapbook, and I put in it all of my favorite quotes on life and relationships and everything. Because I felt this urgency that, oh my gosh, she needs to have this, and I need to do it now, and because who knows what's going to happen. And I gave it to her, and she was like, eh.
No.
And she was
so anticlimactic.
I think I was a little confused.
Right.
Did you know the context at this point?
No, she just was like, I made you something. And I'm like, oh. She didn't say like, I have this fear that I'm not going to be here. And you know what I mean? So I think I would have maybe been more sensitive.
I didn't want to
put that
in me, right? Of course, but I think I would have hopefully been more sensitive.
I think you would have.
It's still at our house.
It's still
whenever you want it.
I know. I think we should
it. Look through this.
I know. Maybe we'll take some pictures of it and include it in the promotion for this episode. But I remember that, and like you've always been like that, like saving things and holding on to things because you're just worried that like you want us to have a piece of you because you didn't have that.
I had very little. Yeah. Very, very little. And my mother was not a materialistic person, so it's not like she had my spoon collection.
Right.
When they,
collection.
Those souvenir spoons when you travel to other places.
Oh, yeah.
So I have that.
When I would travel, I would think, I have to get a spoon for Sue.
I had a lot of friends that did that for me.
Yeah.
But, it was just, panic of but really feeling like something's going to happen.
Yeah. And so then when it doesn't happen, like what
changed for you?
Yeah. What feelings come over you, and how do you like continue living having like met all these milestones?
Well, I was very grateful, very, very grateful. And, Mother's Day has always been difficult. It was hard, even though when I became a mother, I didn't want to celebrate Mother's Day.
Yeah.
It was just because you think of your mother.
Yeah.
Often. And it was very hard. And the reason, I was so happy that my mother saved letters that I'd written to her from camp and letters that she had written to me. And my mother was a big quoter. She loved quotes. So every card that she gave me had a quote on it, and every card I gave her had a quote on it. And she saved all this stuff. And unbeknownst to me, many years later, I found this box, and it was like gold.
Yeah.
I hit gold.
Aww.
And so I've always been incredibly sentimental, and I think afraid to let go. I've got boxes and boxes and boxes. A couple of years ago, I finally gave the kids, these are all of your birthday cards.
Wow.
From like 1 year old.
From 1 year old. And here you go, and you can do whatever you want with them. I'm trying to.
And locks of hair.
Save them.
Lots of locks of hair.
Yeah, and baby teeth. Like all the things. All the things.
Enough hair to make a wig?
Not enough hair to make a wig, sadly. If only. But it makes sense why you did that. I get it.
So I guess kind of switching topics, but for Mom, even though you're talking about like the gratitude of having your mom die once we were a little bit older, you also had the experience of losing your best friend before I was born. And you have newspaper clippings to share, but I'm wondering if you can share that story, because I feel like that probably has a huge impact on your own motherhood.
I don't know if it had a huge impact on my motherhood. It just was such grief
Yeah.
because it was, like, see, I'm going to get all choked
That's
up.
okay.
That's
especially 'cause
okay.
I
looked
cried on
at-
film.
Yeah, it's okay. Erica cried on film too.
So it was my best friend that I grew up with. And, and there's irony in the whole story. So we were, and I never talked about this story. So it was my best friend that I literally grew up with, and we did everything together. And
her name's Victoria, which is my middle name.
right,
Mhm.
and your middle name is you're named after her. And so the thing of it is that I had Danielle, and then I guess 2 years later she got pregnant and had a daughter, and had postpartum psychosis. But I didn't even know what postpartum depression was, never mind postpartum psychosis. I just knew that she had a baby and something wasn't right.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my mom, and at the time, so this is really interesting, at the time, I had just had a falling out with a very close friend. And so when her personality was like not the same, something was different, but I didn't know she had postpartum depression or psychosis or anything going on. Just something was different. I thought maybe she didn't like me. I didn't know. I didn't think something's going on with her.
Yeah.
I thought I'm doing something wrong as a friend.
Yeah.
And I called her and said, like, I confronted her. I don't remember exactly what I said. And then she kind of broke down, and there was something she was going to do. And she couldn't tell me because I'd never forgive her. And I said, there's nothing you would do I would never forgive you of.
Mm.
And I tried so hard. And so I wrote her a letter, and she committed suicide. That's the thing, is that she felt she had psychosis, but I didn't even know in 1990 that nobody talked about that or knew it.
No.
And it was really at the time, shortly after I was pregnant and I had a miscarriage, and everyone was like, and a few people knew that I had lost my best friend, and some people I didn't talk about it. I haven't really talked about it till recently. And this is 34 years ago. And the reason I never really talked about losing a friend to suicide is because I didn't want anybody to prejudge her.
Yeah.
Like people would just like, oh, well, she should have did this, or maybe she was that. And she was such a wonderful person. She was just somebody that, she was just such a wonderful, caring, kind person. I didn't want to explain what happened. I didn't want anybody to have judgment of her. So I never, but it was actually, I didn't really write about it until Erica lost Shayla.
Yeah.
And then I wrote about, pain and joy. And I felt like I could tell like the story, that enough time had passed. And, the thing of it is that her daughter was 4.5 months, and she just thought so I had written the letter.
What did you say in that letter?
I don't remember, but because it was so long ago, but pretty much like something's wrong and I'm worried about you and I'm here for you and I'll do anything. There was no cell phones back then for me to call. I didn't know her husband well enough to say I'm worried about her. Meanwhile, during this time, she was in a psych ward. Things like, so I have the newspaper story. So again, your father gets the call.
Wait, hold on. You said she's in a psych ward?
She did go to a psych ward.
Okay, before
she could, right. She was
before
in a
she
psych
died.
ward. Like her husband knew what was going on. So I know nothing. All I know is that something's not right. I tell my own mother, my mother loved, Vicky, and just said, I'm like, something's not right. And I don't know if she'll ever be who she was. Like it was just so strange. But I did have that call with her, and then I really knew something was wrong, and it wasn't me because that was the call. Like, did I do something to hurt you? Is there something wrong? I had that call because I had to have that call, and that's when she said that she was had done something that she shouldn't have, I wouldn't forgive her. But I knew nothing going on, what was going on in her life at all. And then I wrote the letter, but it was too late. And so the thing of it is that.
And when you say it's too late.
She committed suicide. So she committed suicide before she got my letter.
She got the letter.
So you wrote it when she was living,
Right.
and then you put it in the
And
mail.
mail.
And then as it's like literally traveling to her, she died.
Right.
Wow.
And she jumped out of a window of a hotel. So the thing of it is I didn't know the details. And it's, I was a legal secretary in Century City at the time. And I would pick up the newspaper. And I picked up the newspaper and I'm in the elevator. And luckily, with a bunch of other professionals, Century City's like all these attorneys and professionals. Luckily, I didn't open the newspaper because it would be shock. I would just break down. But when I got to my desk, I opened it and there was the story of what happened. Some reporter wrote out the whole story of what happened when she had the baby, the depression of the baby, everything. It was like the thing I didn't have the courage to, I asked her husband a few things, but not a lot of things because, I just didn't want to overstep my boundary kind of thing. And here this person was able to get the whole story of how she was sitting on a bench, a park bench, and told a complete stranger what she was going to do.
Wow.
And the woman took down the license plate of her car and called the police. And they came to the house and because they were worried. But she had already been in the psych ward and came out. She was on medication and she was feeling fine and went off medication. And when the police came, she said, "Oh no, I was just telling her how I used to feel and I'm fine." But she wasn't because she didn't want anybody to know what she was going to do. And when she made her last call, because she did make a last call, she didn't make it to me. She made it to somebody who was busy and said, "Call me back later."
And when I read the article clipping, my first thought was, I wonder what that felt like that she didn't call you.
I know why she didn't call me.
She didn't want you to stop her.
No, she didn't call me because ironically, because in the call where I said, did I do something and what am I, and there was a conversation where she was saying, "You were just I haven't called you because, I know you're working and you have a child and I just want you to know how much I admire you, like how you can manage it all." And it's like, she didn't call me because she thought I was like, I don't know what, the perfect mom.
Right.
Like, I wish she would have called me because I would have done anything for her. I would have gotten the car and gone. I would have done anything for her, but she was in a psychotic moment.
Yeah.
Because that's what depression does. That's the thing. It lies. Depression tells someone the world is better off without you when nothing can be further than the truth.
Yeah.
And so what happened is I was grateful to read the story to know what happened because I didn't know what happened. But she was the person that helped me deal with the grief of losing my father because she lost her mother at 20. And I want to tell you, she never got over the pain of losing her mother. When she got married, she didn't want a wedding. She just had a reception because her mother wasn't there.
Yeah.
The pain of losing her mother, and her mother was ill for a while, was so great. She could just never, which is so ironic. And,
or like makes sense in some ways that then when she became a mother, like
that you'd think she'd want to be there because the pain of losing her mother, but she felt like,
or like she can't, it sounds like she wasn't showing up in the way that she thought she should be or imagined she would be, and that idea that like depression tells you that you're better, this child will be better off without me,
right? Which nothing could be further
of course
from the truth. And
it makes me sad too that like she got intervention, like she was identified and acknowledged, and they like couldn't help her enough. That's just like so sad.
Well, and then and there were a few other things like so she went to the psych ward and it was really awful. And so she begged to come out and she was on medication, but then she went off the medication because she felt she could be fine. The cycle of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And she told her therapist that what she was going to do.
Oh my gosh.
And the therapist did nothing.
Wow.
And
oh my God, that gives us
that's like
so
it was so
terrible.
Awful. Right. It was like she tried. There were certain
that's like our whole job to like keep our patients safe.
No, yeah. It was really awful. Nobody knew. The husband, she didn't tell the husband, and didn't do anything with that information because, whatever, I mean, it's a whole long thing. But the thing of it is that the irony of it is, I named you after her, and which gave me some comfort.
Yeah.
She liked to paint, and I have 2 paintings hanging that I reframed and hang on my wall to feel her love around.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, the ironic thing is that Erica you save lives and you have expertise in suicide prevention.
Yeah.
And you're named, and after, it's just kind of like
full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle, like healing in a way.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I tried to visit her husband and get to know him, because here he was raising this, child on his own. And I wanted to be there and supportive because a lot of people weren't there. A lot of her friends didn't reach out to him.
Yeah. And you were saying that you also had a miscarriage at that time?
I had a miscarriage but at the time, like it was early on, we had just bought a house. We did a lot of remodeling. And so I didn't even know I was pregnant. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was really worried, like, will this baby be okay?
Yeah.
I mean, here we took the cottage cheese ceilings down, and did I inhale anything? So when I had the miscarriage, I just thought, okay, it's just not meant to be. And like, I don't, and it was early on, and there was so much support around that. And even though I didn't tell people how my best friend died, I just said I had lost my best friend who I knew. There was just no compassion of that. Like, oh, but you lost I didn't get to know my child. It was early on. I just felt like I was grieving my friend that I knew for 33 years.
Yeah.
So, so I got to know her husband. And then when he was going to get married, I just thought he'll just go on with his life. And, I didn't think I'd get to know her. But actually, I became friends with her, which I did not expect to happen. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing about Victoria. And I'm glad that I'm named after her.
I'm glad you're named after her too, because she was such a, wonderful, she was such a kind, caring person, and just so full of love. And, she always will be with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. That was a really nice story about friendship. And I think just for anybody out there who's going through a hard time, like, the people in your life love you and they want to know what's happening, even if it's hard and you're not a burden. They just want to be there to support you. So reach out. Rosalind, you alluded to, Erica's experience of losing Shayla sort of opening up this ability for you to like explore joy and pain and really to talk about Victoria. I'm wondering, and obviously,
Sue,
Mom.
like seeing your daughter get diagnosed with brain cancer, we want to know what it's been like as a mom to see your kids go through terrible times.
Bad things.
Well, I mean, for me, I just want to make it better. I think there's just this urge, and I think which could be annoying to you, Erica, because they just try this, and even you, it could be annoying to you because as I ship things off to Jordy, read this book or do this thing, or we should get together and do there's this feeling I can't stop of wanting to make it better
Yeah.
for me. Sue?
Well, yes, there's that. And I've always said that my children are my greatest accomplishments. And you're our Geordie girl, our youngest, and the only daughter. And I have always felt very close and this, very strong bond connection. And because I didn't have my mom around to help me and to participate in anything with the kids, it was very, very important for me to do all the things that she couldn't do.
Yeah.
To do the babysitting, to help you out however I can. And I think that losing my mom was the hardest thing I'd ever gone through until your diagnosis.
Mm.
And I remember, for me, the feelings started in July on our trip last year because I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And
when the six of us and
Yeah,
Alex
when
and
we all
Lisa, and all of our children.
Yeah. Our mother, daughter,
When we were at the zoo.
Yeah.
getaway. And when I saw that you couldn't make the connection from your hand to buttoning your pants.
Yeah.
And I said to you, and I didn't want to frighten you, but I said, I think you need to see a neurologist.
Yeah.
I think it's in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was already worried.
And my mom is a worrier.
I am a worrier.
Yeah. She goes to worst case scenarios a lot, which makes sense given your history.
Yeah.
Right. So I like, even when I'm on a flight and I don't text you like the moment it lands, she's like,
you do that with me.
yeah, I know.
Okay.
She's like,
Now you know where Barney gets that.
She's like, I remember I landed in Australia and you were like freaking out because I didn't
that was
text
like
you.
a really long time.
I didn't have a phone in Australia at the time. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Now I know where this comes from.
I remember like I feel like maybe it was last year or something. We went on a flight and our flight got delayed a bunch of times.
yeah.
And my mom was literally looking up like flights that had crashed. Like,
No, I wasn't. I was looking.
You were looking up the flight number and then you were seeing it was delayed and then you were
I wanted to see where it was.
right. But I thought you were like looking up like if anything had happened.
No. I wasn't. I was just looking because you can check the flight,
Right.
the path, and the ETA,
Right.
And yeah, but I think that when you experience at a young age a sudden death like that, it's like being hit between the eyes with a baseball, and it just completely throws you off. And so, like I said at the very beginning, it just changes who you are.
Yeah.
And but anyway, when you called me
Yeah.
from the hospital and you're so calm and collect, Mom, I'm at the emergency room because I was having a little more feeling of that tingling sensation, and they found something, and then now they want to do an MRI. And could you just go to the house and be with Brody so Hank can come and be with me?
Yeah.
And
What went through your mind?
what went through my mind? I think my jaw was on the floor,
Yeah. Even though
And-
you knew maybe something was wrong, you didn't.
and I had a terrible feeling.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
Did you know that at the time?
I knew that she thought something was wrong, but no, I didn't know that she had a bad feeling about like what the diagnosis was going to be and stuff like that.
yeah, I just remember you're in a state of shock and you're going through the motions of doing what you need to do. And I'm gathering things. And I remember telling Dad and getting there. And I think Aunt Julie and Gianna came.
They did,
that
yeah.
night. And I banged my head so hard on that stand up. I had such
the
a
desk.
Yeah.
and then it went into my
Right. I remember
I-
this.
and I on the phone, then you called me later and you said, yeah, they found a mass. And you said, I want you to still do the baby shower for Lasha. You have to promise me
My sister-in-law.
that you're going to do the baby shower for Lasha. And I'm, of course, Jordy, of course I'm going to do the baby shower for Lasha. And I couldn't think.
Yeah.
I couldn't think. I didn't sleep a wink that night.
I'm sure.
I was
You were like
a
in my
wreck.
bed also. Like
I was in your bed. I was a wreck.
Yeah.
And I still feel, for the first, I don't know, maybe 6 months, that I've been walking around in slow motion while the rest of the world is moving at a regular pace, and devastated and heartbroken and guilt. Why couldn't it be me? You've got your whole life ahead of you. I'd rather it be me.
I would not rather it be you.
Well, I would. And knowing that there was nothing I could do to help you.
Yeah.
Except feed you and bring you food and help you with Brody and,
Which are all very helpful things.
Yeah. And sometimes saying the wrong things.
That's okay.
Because
we all do, don't we?
We all do.
I don't know. I told Jordy we had a big talk last week, and I don't know how to be. I don't know how to. It's all.
Well, there's no protocol of like what to do when your daughter gets brain cancer.
No, but I don't know.
It's like you want to do the right thing.
You do, but you don't know what that is.
Right.
I don't think the right thing exists.
No, but that's how you feel. That's a mom thing. I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
Because I feel that way sometimes too. Like, even though I'm close, like, oh, did I say the right thing?
Yeah.
Am I doing the right thing? It's just a thing that you feel.
Absolutely.
So I totally understand that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just, of course you think about, you said, don't look anything up. And I was really good. And till this day,
I
didn't even want to know the name.
Yeah.
Because I knew the name, but I didn't want to hear anybody say it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't face it.
I mean, that makes sense.
And I remember when the doctor came back after surgery, and there were 10 of us, and he was like,
he would look so overwhelmed.
He was overwhelmed.
Into that room.
He said, "Do you think this is going to be too much for Jordy?" I said, "No, she's used to this.
Yeah.
This is the way she rolls."
Yeah.
And when he said, "We don't think she's had it very long. It's very aggressive."
Mm.
And I saw Hank's face drop.
Yeah.
And I knew. And I thought, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
You're doing it.
You are.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
It sucks.
It sucks.
I feel like that's the hard part. It's just like,
I feel like, you're going through it, but I just feel like it's the hardest for Sue as the mom, because this thing that you cannot control.
Yeah.
And it's your child that you love so much. And it's, like you said, you don't want it to be your mom, but that's the natural order of things. This is
of
not
course
the order of things.
Yeah.
This is so rare. How could this be?
Yeah. I feel the same.
When you say that it's the hardest for Sue, I feel like competing with you. It's harder for me. No, I'm kidding. But I
have so many people who love me. You do. It feels great.
It sucks.
Yeah, no, it sucks. I think for me, the hardest part is also being a mom and going through this, because life doesn't stop. It's like you still have to.
We were in the car yesterday or the other day, and we're like talking about death, and then we're going to the park.
Right.
It's like, how do you make that transition?
Right. How do you transition out of like this existential place of living, and then like take your kid to the park and be like smiling and like happy and on and so yeah. Now that I'm a mom, I can understand the feeling of helplessness that you must feel, and I also know, being someone who's sick and not functioning at the same level that you're used to. And like, I feel like I was always someone who was like, you didn't have to worry about me. Like,
right.
I was okay. Like, never had to worry about me. Not like you really had to worry about Jonathan and Ari, but like, you definitely didn't have to worry about me. I was going to handle my own stuff. I'm independent. I'm going to get stuff done. And now it's like, I'm the thing you're worried most about. And that's what I hate so much. I mean, for you too. It's just like being that source of worry for other people. And that's why I wanted to like just maintain normalcy, because I'm like, no, she will have a baby shower. because life does go on, and I want people to continue to enjoy the things that make life fun and celebratory. And
It's just hard.
I'm sure that was a big
2
ask.
days after you had surgery
It was a big ask
to put on a happy face. And,
Yeah.
you know, of course I wanted to do that for Lasha, and she
Yeah.
deserved it and everything. But I couldn't talk to anybody.
I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah. I
It's like
understand.
people wanting to know what's going on.
No, nobody knew.
No one knew at that
Nobody
point.
knew.
Point.
And I
Right.
just couldn't talk
And we
about
didn't
it.
know what it was at that point either. Like we weren't
We were still hopeful.
We were
I mean,
like,
Jordy, we're in the hospital, like about to go through brain surgery, and you're asking, "Oh, okay, so can you get these cookies from the freezer?" You're like planning her baby shower.
Oh, she was writing
I was writing the games.
yes, we did the game, and we practiced.
Maybe
yes.
that's what Jordy did to cope.
Yeah.
I
Maybe-
did.
right, that's a coping mechanism.
Of course. I'm
It
like,
gets you out of being
Yeah.
right. I'm like,
depressed.
okay, so I could sit here and worry about all the potential things that could happen at my surgery.
Or
Or
I
I
could
could
plan-
focus on something fun, which is
I
my
like baby
sister-in-law's
showers.
baby shower. And I'm like, I'm going to
course.
do that because worrying about the surgery isn't going to make it go better.
And then writing letters to everybody.
I did
writing-
write letters to everybody. I wrote text messages to everybody that night. Just, you know, I first thought my surgery was going to be super early in the morning.
Right.
So I wrote all of these really lengthy messages to everybody that I love and sent them out. And then, of course, my surgery is delayed till like 3 p.m. or something. So still got to see some of those people after I wrote the letters. But yeah, I was definitely like in my feelings, but I also knew that like life wasn't going to stop just because I was going through this thing. And
Well,
so
and I was pregnant at the time, and I remember you said
Yeah.
like, "I'll at least get to meet your baby." And I haven't told you this part before,
What?
but there was like a deep fear of like if you weren't going to meet my baby.
Oh no.
Yeah, and Ramsey and I, it's like
no.
another crying thing. I take the tissues out. No, I'm fine. I was like, if she doesn't make it, like we're naming him after you.
Oh, that makes me so sad.
And I'm really glad I don't have to.
I'm so glad I got to meet
actually
him.
said you are not naming any children after Jordy.
I know. Rosalind's been like the
Not
positive cheerleader this whole time. She's like,
going to
you're going to be
happen.
around a long time, Jordy. I know it. I know it.
Just feel it. You know what? Erica called to say, well, how do you think the surgery's going to be? And I did not have a good feeling. I said that. I do not have a good feeling
Yeah.
that it would be benign. Like I just,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It's like, so I don't know because, and then I had to go to this really weird place of like, I'd go to the woo woo, as I said. I don't know why I'm like your big cheerleader, Jordy. I don't know why I'm your big cheerleader.
I love it.
But it's like somebody's the miracle. Somebody is. I already know personally people,
Yeah.
stories I've shared. And I just keep thinking, why not you? And
Yeah.
it's really a day at a time. And it's not, it's scary. And it's kind of like, but I'm just going to, at this point, just feel like the hope. And it's easier because I'm the second mom and not the real mom.
Not the first mom.
really
Yeah.
hard. I'm sure I would feel just like Sue going around in a daze. There's just got to be the hardest thing of all.
Yeah.
So I want to like acknowledge that, but as just like, I don't know, it's like this weird thing. Like there's these miracles that happen and I'm just like rooting, putting all my energy, white light and woo-woo-ness.
I love all the woo-ness you send me. I appreciate it.
When I hear woo woo, it's funny to me because that's what my grandmother called a vagina.
Funny.
Hopefully you're not sending vaginas Jordy's way.
No dinosaur.
Different type of woo-woo.
That's for Grandma Anna. And I also wanted to say that, when I went to the hospital the following day, and you were crying and you were saying how terrible you felt to have to tell us, and you were worried about us.
Of course.
And so I interpreted that as
Don't say
have
how you
to-
feel.
I have to be really strong for Jordy because I don't want her to have the burden of worrying about us too.
Well, that's how I also felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just have to be strong. Not that I was walking around happy,
No.
but I just felt, that I needed to be strong. And in the beginning, you had like I never saw anything like it. They were
Like an
people,
army of people
like, you know,
there.
you had a revolving door in your condo.
Yeah.
And everybody came, and every day was like a party, and
It was.
you know, and then
Good
Those were, like,
positive
some of, like-
energy, right.
Yeah.
Honestly, like those days were fun.
Yeah.
Like even though it was terrible, I like got to spend so much time with people that I
know.
love.
And then there was the fertility thing. And then you decided to rent a house.
Yeah.
And it was like boom, boom. And then Ari's wedding. And
Yeah.
And now
Boom,
things
boom,
have
boom, boom,
settled
boom.
a bit.
What?
Now things have like settled a bit.
yeah.
and then you were very excited. You know, the Iron Man and all this money was raised. And then the roller coaster started.
Yeah, like not getting
It
into
seemed
the
like
clinical
everything
trial.
was going in the right direction.
Yeah, it was like all working in my favor.
Yeah. And then you had a full resection and,
Yeah.
and very, you know, minimal
deficits.
Right.
Yeah, like
Yeah. And then reality kind of set in.
right. It's like, oh, like, but like my life is still like really different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it still sucks.
And then there was Dad had
Bypass
COVID,
surgery.
and you guys ended up with COVID. You know, and all these viruses, and then he had bypass. It was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot at once.
A lot in the last 8 months.
Yeah, it's been a
lot.
long 8 months.
It's been a long 8
And
months.
it also feels like it's gone by really fast.
Well, it's
The
like hard
same
for me to
does.
remember. Like,
life before.
yeah.
I know. Which makes me kind of sad because I think life before was like probably really great.
Okay, well, but
I remember before.
Do you? Was it,
was
great?
you.
It was
it just
It was
feels like
great.
it just feels like a really long time because so much has happened
Yeah.
and so much has changed.
Yeah.
And there's
it
the
does
belief
feel
that
like a long time ago. It feels like
does.
longer than 8 months for
Yeah.
sure.
It does. Yeah.
But I do specifically remember like so many memories. We
no,
all had.
I don't actually forget those memories.
No, it's not that I forgot memories. Like I can remember them, but it's hard to like picture my life normal now.
Yes,
Right, I could understand that.
Yeah. But I still have the memories.
Right, no, I
No,
could
we
see
know that you have. Actually, you have a very.
I have a very good memory. There's stuff
Very
happening in
good
my
memory.
brain, but I have a good memory.
No, I could see how that would be hard because that all this change is happening mostly to you, and that's
Yeah.
it's got to be hard because everything changed in a moment's notice.
Yeah. It
and
was
you were
like really fast.
blindsided.
Yeah.
And I think also, you know, when I didn't know what to expect to see you post-op.
Right.
And I thought, you know, your head would be all bandaged, and it wasn't.
No,
And
it was
you-
like pretty okay. I mean, high on
Yeah,
drugs,
you were
but
Amazing though. And you
Very
looked
remarkable.
beautiful. And I was so happy to see you.
I'm sure.
and then, you know, you started the chemo and the radiation, and the hair started falling
Yeah.
out. And then you could see, you know, visibly
Yeah.
the illness.
Yeah.
And you know, losing weight and the tiredness.
Yeah.
And it's been hard, you know,
Yeah.
and yet you still have been very upbeat and wanting to live your life to the fullest. And I have guilt feelings that I'm not at that place,
That's okay.
you know, but I look at you and I think you're such a role model and a mentor for me.
Oh.
And I'm learning from you, but there are days I can't even get dressed.
Yeah.
And I can't, like the other night, Dad and I, you know, went out to get some food and just bring it back. I said, I can't go to a restaurant. I just can't
Yeah.
do it. I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
I understand.
it's hard.
And I have moments like that too. It's not all upbeat and
I know.
strong. And, you know, I have moments where I feel sad and where I'm like, how can this be real life? You know, but I just feel like what we talked about at the beginning, which is like something can happen so suddenly and you never know what tomorrow will bring.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to be focused on making the most of my time right now, because regardless of this happening to me, I don't know how much time I had left. So like you said, it's predetermined. It's going to happen at some point, and I'm just going to enjoy the time that I have here. And I think it's okay to be sad and to not have that feeling all the time. I don't feel that way all the time, but most of the time, like I just want to like have a good time,
Yeah. And I'm glad.
you know?
which is amazing and healing in itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like just kind of the energy field of
Yeah.
being in a positive creates more positive. But yes, it's out of your control. You can only do so much. And that's the scary part.
It's scary. And also, like, I feel a lot of freedom in that. Like, this, I think I'm someone who was anxious and I would want to control things and like be in charge. And like, I can't do that here. Yeah. And the idea that like it's actually not possible for me to be in control, I feel like it feels freeing to just be like, it's whatever's going to be is going to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to like control whatever I can control, treatment choices and how I spend my time and those kinds of things. But outside of that, I'm like, I could spend time worrying about something that's outside of my control, but then I'm missing out on
time now,
being present.
Right.
And what an amazing attitude that is. Really.
It is hard. Like, it's definitely hard. And I have moments where I'm just like, man, my life sucks. And I feel sad that like everyone else gets to make plans and I make plans about clinical trials or like stuff like that. You know, like I definitely have moments of that. But I think for the most part, I just want to enjoy the time I have with people.
And I think, you know, as a parent, that's where so much of my sadness lies as well. Not just in the health, but that you have to go through this, that you know, you were wearing that thing, the Optune device, that, you know, you're not going and getting your hair cut right now. It's growing.
Yeah.
But, you know, all the things that seem like such minuscule things, but it takes away a person's, well, the control, but also, you know, it's just not the way it should be.
Yeah.
It's not the way it should be.
Yeah. And I agree. It's not the way it should be.
It's not the way it should be.
And I feel that way, like the way you feel about me, I feel that about Brody. Like I'm like, oh, I don't want him to like have a sick mom. I don't want him to like look back on his childhood and be like, and have that be the thing that like defines him or that's what he remembers. Like I just want to provide him the best childhood possible. And I think being a mom's hard.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I always say it's the best and most rewarding job, but the most difficult.
Yeah.
I always say it's the hardest job in the world.
It
I've always
is.
said that. You know,
because it never stops.
Right. It's 24/7.
Even when they're adults.
Maybe when they were 18, your job would be done and it's not done.
Right. Never imagined being here.
Yeah. Right? Like I'm 32 years old and like here you are probably the most worried you've ever been about me in my whole life.
Absolutely.
And I'm fully grown.
Right.
And have my own child. And it just like never stops. So I shout out to all the moms who are doing the good work.
And, you know, and a lot of my worry is also, you know, I worry about Hank.
Yeah.
And I worry for Brody.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I think that's where most of my worry lies. It's just, and I've said this a lot of times, but just the people, everybody else around me. And that doesn't mean that I don't want people to share their feelings with me. Putting that out there. It's just the way that I operate because I imagine myself in the position of being on the other side of it. And I remember when I had Brody, you had gotten a scan and they thought like it was the day of, the day that I had Brody, they thought there was like a mass in your abdomen.
Yes.
And I remember being beside myself. Like I had this new baby and
so you didn't share any of that with me.
No, of course not. And I'm like sobbing to Hank, like nothing can happen to my mom. Nothing can happen to my mom. Oh. So I like just imagine that like being on the other side of it. Cause I mean, thankfully everything came back okay. And you're here. And
I remember saying to Dad, I said, I think I have to tell them.
Yeah. And I'm glad you did. I'm glad you told us. But yeah, I just remember that panic.
Yeah.
And so I feel that panic when I think about Brody and I feel that panic when I think about you guys, but I'm not walking around feeling panicked all the time, which maybe people are surprised about, but I'm just like, even though I have this bad news, I have to still live my life.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so good that you're doing this because you're teaching people how to cope with all different kinds of situations, all different types of grief, and, you know, to be able to express your feelings, and what might be a better thing to say. And, because we don't know.
No.
So many people are afraid to say things. It's kind of like they think that they're going to remind you of something that you don't think about.
And you're like, I'm already
24/7.
thinking about it all the time.
Right. So it's always better to say something.
Yes,
I agree.
I think
I
it
agree.
always is.
And I just feel like what you were saying about this podcast is like, the hope is that someone listening is going to hear you share about how you thought you were going to die at 45 because your mom died at 45. And that makes them go, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. I'm not alone. Right. And you're going to share about losing a friend to suicide. And hopefully that makes someone feel like, I don't need to feel shame. I can share how I'm feeling and like reach out for help and lean on the people in my life. And that's our goal with this whole podcast. So thank you guys for
so much.
joining us, and happy Mother's Day, and a gentle happy Mother's Day to all who celebrate.
It's okay if anyone doesn't have a happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, you can have a sad Mother's Day, but we're sending you a big hug from Grief Street. Wow, that episode was so beautiful and very heavy.
Yeah, it was really sweet. I mean, we went way over the amount of time we thought we were going to have to record, but we could really just talk to our moms forever. And it's just so interesting as a motherly role of where they take care of us. And so getting insight into their world is just something we don't always have the opportunity for.
Right, it's true. I feel like a lot of times especially when we were younger, they're like trying to protect us from things and like the hardships of life. And now we can sort of like share in those things together and figure out how to navigate them together. And I think that's been, while hard, also really beautiful. Yeah, we could have talked to them for hours. I mean, if we wanted to, if we didn't have places to be and things to do, we could have gone on forever. Maybe we'll bring them back one day for a part 2.
Yeah.
If you guys have lingering questions or things you want to explore, or maybe things that you were interested in that we didn't get to really touch on, we can definitely do that in the future.
Yep. And to just really point out that mother-daughter relationships can be hard. And as Mother's Day is approaching, we just want to acknowledge that there are complexities in relationships. And also, I'm grateful that we have our moms here. Like, not everyone has that.
I know. And it's so hard for me to imagine like my mom being 20 and having to go through becoming a mom without her mom. And I know so many people have to do that. And that Mother's Day can just feel like my mom said, like it just felt really sad for a long time. Like, even though she was a mom, like it didn't feel celebratory.
Right.
And I think that's how a lot of people feel on this day. It's just like a reminder of like loss.
And I feel that too as a mom of like, it's amazing. And also I think of my loss. I'm also wondering for you, like, does Mother's Day mean something differently this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. Hank will hate that I just said that. It's a good question. He's like, that doesn't sound natural. I think so. I haven't given it much thought, to be fair. Brody's birthday is the day before or the day after Mother's Day. So I've been planning his little second birthday party. It's bus themed. And so I've been more focused on that. But I think, I'm just wanting to like slow down and like really enjoy the day. I don't really care what we do. I just want to be intentional about the time that I spend with him. And I think I've been feeling that in general, not just about Mother's Day, but just I don't know, maybe the last like 3 months, I feel like he's in a big mommy phase, and that's been really challenging because when he like gets sad because he wants me, it's easy to go to a place of like, what's going to happen when I'm not here?
Yeah.
I
go there too.
Yeah.
It's when I want my mommy. And at bed at night, I just wonder, I mean, I ask you so I know, but I just think like, holy shit, like what's going through your mind right now?
Yeah, it's like we slept trained Brody. So like we were totally on board with like the Ferber method and the check-ins and everything. But since I've been sick, it's been like a lot harder for me, especially because he's verbal now. When they're just cries, it's like, oh, he could be wanting anything. But when he's saying, I want my mommy,
you know exactly
come play with me, pick
what
me
he
up.
wants.
It's like, and I know that he will get better sleep if I don't intervene, but I just find myself so like drawn to having to go check in on him and just cuddle him, because I'm like, he like needs that, and what if he doesn't have it for a long time?
Yeah.
And like trying to put in that quality time now. So yeah, trying not to like live in that place of like thinking I won't be here, but also wanting to make the most of the time that we do have together and have it be like really intentional and be present for it. And yeah, it's a hard balance, but yeah, I mean, I'm just grateful to be here this
Me too.
Mother's Day.
I'm grateful you're here too.
Yeah.
So Mother's Day, complex emotions.
Complex emotions, and I know everyone always says like Happy Mother's Day, but
Gentle Mother's Day is maybe
like
a better.
gentle hug to all those who are celebrating or not celebrating Mother's Day. If you're having feelings, we are too.
Yep.
And yeah, we just appreciate you listening, and thanks to our moms for coming on and being
Yeah.
so vulnerable.
I know
and
they're the best.
willing to share. Like
we don't know about our dads, but like our moms,
Yeah.
like they're down always.
Yeah, they're always
So
down to,
shout
like-
out to the moms.
Shout out to the moms. They crushed it. They were a little nervous, and I think they did an amazing job of sharing their stories, and you could probably just feel like how much they love their moms and how much they love us. And yeah, it was just a really special episode. So thanks to them for coming on. And I was going to say something else.
I don't know. Thanks for listening along and learning more about our moms.
Oh, right. I was going to say, it's fine. Hank will edit this out if it doesn't need to be. I was going to say, like, I didn't say this in the episode when we were recording because we were running short on time. But your mom sharing her experience of losing her best friend just like hit home really hard.
yeah.
And I'm sure it did for you too, of just like having to like go through and because it was around the same age that we are now, like having to go through your 30s and like the rest of your life without your
I know.
your
Oh my gosh. I think I
person.
blocked that out.
Yeah. And so I think when I was listening in the moment, I was thinking like, I don't know how like your mom did it, you know, like how you.
And she said she had a miscarriage, and everyone was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you must be so sad about this miscarriage. But she said like not a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, your best friend just died.
Yeah.
And I've heard my mom talk about her best friend forever, and I just don't want to talk about you. I want you to be there.
I know. I mean, I plan to be here, but you better talk about me if I'm
Of
not.
course. That's a no-brainer.
Right? Like
but-
I want.
that feels like a terrible joke. A no-brainer. That feels really,
No, I
oh.
like it. I like it. You have to find some humor in it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was like really moved by Roz's story of like navigating life after losing a friend in like a really traumatic way.
Yeah,
And
so tragic.
so tragic, and just feeling like all she wanted to do was be able to be there for Victoria. And that's how I obviously feel about you and all of the friends that I hold close in my life. And I am just grateful for friendship. So shout out to the amazing friends too.
Everyone. Yep.
Everyone.
Everyone.
We love everyone.
All right. Thanks again for listening.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Grief Street. We put out new episodes every Monday. If you'd like to support us, give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel to find the video version of our episodes. Please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We would love to hear from you and get some feedback. If you'd like to contact us, please email griefstreetpodcast@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 508-474-3378. That's 508-GRIEFST. Our theme song is Hepcat Jive, courtesy of purpleplanet.com. We'll see you next time.